Jade Cargill just opened up some eyes with her recent remarks. We'll also check out a new threat for Damage CTRL, The Rock, and much more. Starting things off with Jade Cargill because everything there with her in-ring status continues to be uncertain. It's been something we've been following and discussing since the Royal Rumble, but actual progression on the situation has been extremely hard to come by. Jade Cargill made her WWE debut during the Royal Rumble match in a very impressive fashion, and naturally, fans assumed that the Royal Rumble appearance served as Jade's big debut, and that she would be assigned to a brand in the weeks after the Rumble. But it's been a near 2 months since the Royal Rumble match took place, and everyone that popped up in that match has been long assigned to a brand, except Jade Cargill. And the situation is a bit weird because they continue to show Jade Cargill being in contract negotiations with Nick Aldis. But the weeks continue to fly by, and Jade's signing to Smackdown is never made official and continues to be ignored. Last time we went over this topic was right around Elimination Chamber time, when Jade Cargill was featured in a few back-to-back segments talking contract matters over with Nick Aldis. And we said back then that maybe that's a sign that Jade Cargill's signing to SmackDown will be made official in the coming weeks. Well, a whole entire month has passed and nothing has been made official that Jade Cargill was signing to SmackDown. So the whole situation is just extremely confusing, especially as a viewer, because you see this big star get introduced at the Royal Rumble. You see her in contract talks, ready to sign with the brands, but then 2 months go by and there's no word on what's going on with her status. Obviously, everything is a bit hectic right now with the last few weeks a build-up for WrestleMania, so it's safe to assume that we won't see any more big moves made with Jade Cargill before WrestleMania 40. It seems that everything with her could be saved for the post-WrestleMania season. But Jade Cargill caught some fans' attention this week when she responded to a fan that asked her when we will see her wrestle next. And Jade Cargill had these words to say in response to them, quote, "Never. I make enough money not to. I told you guys that. Why do you keep bringing this up?" End quote. Obviously, there's no truth to Jade's remarks there to that fan. She was most likely speaking in a sarcastic way because she's probably very tired of hearing that question for the last few months. Jade Cargill doesn't know when she'll wrestle next because that decision isn't hers to make. She's pretty much waiting to find out that information, the same way we're all waiting for that as well. Booker T even jumped in on some Jade Cargill related topics on his podcast. He was asked about a fan theory that was going around for Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill to form a tag team to be Jade's first big thing to do on the main roster. But Booker T was against the idea and thinks it would be bad to throw Jade Cargill into a tag team right off the bat. So Jade Cargill's status is still a big mystery, but hopefully we'll get some answers on what's going on there in the coming weeks. A big topic earlier this week was how WWE superstars, and even the networks themselves, were allegedly all a bit upset that The Rock had all these special privileges to say whatever he wants on social media promos and WWE television, while everyone else has to follow a strict set of rules and guidelines. Well, The Rock has actually responded to those reports with some remarks on social media. He had this to say, quote, "Networks and standards and practices have issues with my language, but I'd rather be real than not. I talk from the heart, shoot from the hip, and try to always have fun. Enjoy the Rock concert, final boss." End quote. So that's The Rock's answer to all these reports going around. Doesn't look like he's backing down or changing who he is. He says he speaks from the heart and doesn't want to be fake, so that's just how it's going to be. He also signed off those remarks with his new Final Boss nickname that we've been discussing a lot this week. The Rock appears to be going extremely all in with that new nickname, so it should only gain more and more significance and meaning as the weeks go on. Damage CTRL has their hands pretty full now, dealing with Bayley, Naomi, and Bianca Belair. But things look like they could potentially get even more challenging for the faction. During a recent question and answer session together, Trish Stratus and Lita addressed the topic of coming after the WWE Women's Tag Team titles together and said if it was something that they've spoken about. Lita had this to say about the topic, quote, "We have touched on that. It's a great question. I feel that should be the last question, but only because it's awesome. But people like to talk about this imaginary curse of the WWE Women's Tag titles. But I think that if Trish and I were tag champs, that somehow the curse would magically disappear." End quote. Trish Stratus also added that the Kabuki Warriors wouldn't be ready for them. And it's a really interesting concept from Trish and Lita. Like Lita alluded to, the fans do talk about the concept of the women's tag team titles being cursed, because it's always surrounded by bad things happening within the WWE storylines and even in real life. It could be the tag teams breaking up themselves, devastating injuries to the champions, walkouts, and much more. Just so much bad history with those titles. But according to Lita, she thinks it's an imaginary curse that they'll get rid of the second they get their hands on the tag team titles. And for Lita, a story like that does make sense. A lot of fans seem to forget the fact, but Lita is a former women's tag team champion. She held the titles with Becky Lynch in 2023, but technically never lost the titles. Lita was attacked backstage by Trish Stratus, couldn't compete in the title defense match, so Trish took Lita's spot and then turned on Becky Lynch to cost them the tag team titles. So you can look at that whole situation as Trish Stratus and Lita basically having unfinished business with themselves and with the tag team titles. It was Trish's fault that Lita lost those titles without even competing in a match. So it would be a nice gesture if the two of them made up on WWE television and won those tag team titles back as well. Trish Stratus has said on several times in recent months that she's not done in the ring by any means and plans on having more runs. Trish even said that she could be back in the ring sometime in 2024, and Lita has never really made it extremely clear that she was fully done either. So there's actually a chance that Trish and Lita could pull something like this off if everything works out, and they'll have the opportunity to break that curse. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.